It was well past midnight when Emma Lewis walked into room 402, her nursing shoes whispering softly against the hospital tiles. The room was quiet, dimly lit, except for the rhythmic blinking of the machines monitoring the silent figure lying in the bed. Mr. Charles Bennett had been in a coma for nearly 6 months. He was once a powerful businessman, a self-made millionaire who'd conquered real estate and finance, but now he lay completely still, trapped in silence, between life and death. Emma didn't know the man he had been, only the man he had become. His chart read, unresponsive. No signs of voluntary movement. But she didn't see a case or a chart. She saw a human being. And every evening, when her shift ended, she would take an extra hour to bathe him, talk to him, and treat him with a tenderness that came not from duty, but from something deeper, something spiritual. If you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in the power of love that expects nothing in return, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Stories Collection, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's spread the light together. Emma wasn't always this strong. She had grown up in a trailer park just outside Houston, raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to put food on the table. When her mother died of cancer when Emma was just 19, she made a silent promise over her grave, to live a life of service, one filled with compassion. Becoming a nurse wasn't just a profession, it was a calling. But life in the hospital wasn't easy. Long shifts, difficult patients, cold supervisors, and above all, the emotional toll of seeing suffering up close. Yet Emma never let it harden her. She prayed silently every time she bathed Mr. Bennett, her hands gentle as she wiped his face, brushed his hair, and whispered stories about her day. In case you can hear me, she would smile sadly, I hope you know someone cares. Other nurses joked about it. Why waste your time on a vegetable? One once whispered. But Emma didn't respond, because deep down, she believed someone, was still in there. That belief was all she needed. What Emma didn't know was that Charles Bennett could hear her. Somewhere, deep in the locked recesses of his mind, her voice had become an anchor. He couldn't move, couldn't speak, couldn't even blink, but he was aware, trapped in a silent prison. He heard her prayers, felt her kindness, and when she cried quietly beside his bed one night, telling him about how lonely she felt in this world, his heart cried too. It was a strange feeling, but her presence was keeping him tethered. Keeping him alive. One rainy Thursday, something changed. Emma had come in drenched, her umbrella snapped by the wind, her clothes clinging to her skin beneath the nurse's coat. But she didn't complain. She set down her soaked bag, pulled a clean towel from the cabinet, and began her evening ritual. As she bathed Mr. Bennett's face, she whispered, you know, today felt like the world forgot me. I just needed someone to say I mattered. Her voice cracked, and for the first time, tears fell onto the pillow near his head. But I guess that's selfish. You're the one who's stuck in there. Suddenly, the heart monitor beeped irregularly. Emma looked up, startled. She leaned in and saw something she hadn't seen in 6 months, a twitch. A real, undeniable flicker beneath his closed eyelid. Her breath caught. Mr. Bennett, she whispered. Can you hear me? The monitor spiked again. Then, his finger moved. Doctors rushed in moments later, and Emma stood back, heart pounding, tears streaming freely now. She watched as a miracle unfolded in front of her eyes. Over the next few days, Charles Bennett slowly emerged from the coma, first with eye movement. Then slight gestures, then speech. The medical team called it remarkable, unprecedented, baffling. But Charles knew exactly what had saved him. When he could finally speak clearly, his first full sentence wasn't to a doctor or family member. It was to Emma. You are the reason I came back. What followed was beyond anything Emma could have imagined. Charles requested her presence every day. He wanted to hear everything, her life story, her dreams, her pain. She spoke shyly at first, but he listened with an intensity that made her feel seen. Truly seen. As his strength returned, so did the spark in his eyes. But there was something different now. He no longer cared about stocks or luxury properties. He cared about connection, about meaning, and Emma had become his light. 3 weeks after his awakening, Charles was strong enough to leave the hospital. But he didn't leave alone. He offered Emma a job, not as a nurse, but as his personal care coordinator. She refused at first. "You don't owe me anything," she insisted. But Charles shook his head. "This isn't about owing. This is about purpose." Under his encouragement, Emma enrolled in a master's program, fully funded by Charles. "You're meant for more," he told her. "And I want to help you get there." Months turned into a year. And during that time, a beautiful friendship blossomed between them. They shared dinners, laughter, music, and even silent moments that needed no words. He healed, not just in body, but in soul. And so did she. Then, on a quiet winter evening, Charles brought Emma to the rooftop of his estate. The city lights shimmered below, but his eyes were only on her. "Emma," he said softly, "I spent a lifetime building empires and chasing success. But it took a coma to show me that none of it mattered. Not until I met someone who gave expecting nothing. You gave me life, literally and spiritually. And I want to spend the rest of mine making sure you never feel forgotten again." Tears filled her eyes. Her hands trembled as he took them in his. "Marry me," he said, "not because I'm grateful, but because I love you." The wind held its breath. And Emma whispered, "Yes." Their wedding was small, intimate, beautiful. The nurses who had once scoffed now wept in the back pew. Emma walked down the aisle in a simple white gown, glowing with a joy that came not from luxury, but from love. Real, soul-deep love. Together, they started a foundation to fund scholarships for low-income nursing students, in memory of Emma's mother. They traveled to hospitals around the country, speaking about compassion, hope, and second chances. Charles even sold several of his companies and donated the wealth to medical research. And every year, on the anniversary of the night she first bathed him, they lit a candle in gratitude. For the night love woke up, they called it. Sometimes, the most miraculous transformations don't begin with thunder or lightning. They begin with a kind hand, a silent prayer, and a heart that chooses love, every single day. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that miracles do exist in quiet acts of kindness, please like this video, subscribe to Stories Collection, and share it with someone who needs a little light today. Speech balloon comment below. What would you say to someone who stayed by your side when the world didn't? We'd love to hear your heart. Of course, here's a continuation and emotional deepening of the story to help complete the tone, arc, and length suitable for a 6,000-word YouTube narration. This section enhances the emotional resonance, introduces new challenges, and brings the transformation full circle. As weeks turned into months, Emma and Charles embraced their new life not as saviors or celebrities, but as two broken people who found healing in one another. Still, not everything was easy. Love, even when deep and sincere, doesn't erase scars, it only illuminates the path forward. And both Emma and Charles had shadows that needed time and patience to face. Emma struggled with guilt. Though Charles loved her unconditionally, she often found herself questioning whether she truly deserved happiness. She had spent so many years alone, caring for others, hiding her needs behind hospital walls and worn-out shoes. Now that she had everything she once dreamed of, love, purpose, even financial stability, there was a small, cruel voice inside that whispered, "This is temporary. You're just a nurse. He'll forget." One night, unable to sleep, Emma stood by the large bay window of their home. Rain poured down in sheets, reminiscent of the night Charles first moved his finger. She pressed her palm to the glass and whispered a quiet prayer for strength. Charles awoke and walked in, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "You still think this isn't real sometimes, don't you?" he asked gently. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He didn't lecture or reassure her with hollow words. Instead, he took her hand and placed it over his heart. "Do you feel that? That beat is yours. It came back because of you. And it will keep beating because we're in this together." Charles, too, had his own battles. Waking up from a coma was miraculous, but it came with terrifying realizations. He'd missed 6 months of his life. Business partners had stolen from him. Some family members he thought would stand by him had vanished once the money stopped flowing. And most painfully, the public adored the new Charles, humble, giving, grounded, but the man in the mirror sometimes didn't recognize that version yet. He told Emma once, during a quiet evening walk, "I built towers, Emma. Glass, steel, skyscrapers that touched clouds. But none of them held love. They were hollow. And I let them define me. You didn't just save my life, you reminded me I have a soul." The foundation they built, Hearts Awake, quickly grew. But it wasn't the media appearances or donations that moved people, it was the story behind it. The millionaire in a coma, and the nurse who stayed. The woman who bathed him like he mattered when the world thought he never would again. And the man who woke up with new eyes, determined to pour love back into the world he once tried to dominate. Their story inspired other nurses to start support groups for caregivers. It motivated former CEOs to reevaluate their lives and prioritize service over status. One particularly moving moment came during a foundation gala when a young man approached Emma with trembling hands. "My mom's a nurse," he said. "She watched your interview. She said she finally felt seen. She hasn't stopped crying since. She said, she finally believes her kindness matters." Emma embraced him tightly. For every person who had ever felt invisible, that was the miracle. But just when life felt settled, a new test emerged. Charles collapsed one morning while preparing breakfast. The doctors rushed him in. Diagnosis: a previously undetected blood clot, possibly triggered by the long coma. For 3 long days, Emma didn't sleep. She sat beside his bed, the roles reversed now, praying, begging, holding his hand. "I can't lose you," she whispered. But something strange happened during those quiet hours. She began to feel something deeper than fear. A stillness. A peace. As if the love they had built had taken root so deep, no illness could uproot it. And she remembered what she told him once when he was in a coma: "Even if you don't wake up, I'll stay." Now, she realized, even if their time was short, it had been real. It had been enough. And that kind of love never dies. Charles recovered, slower this time, but recovered nonetheless. And when he finally opened his eyes and saw her curled up in the chair beside him, he smiled weakly and whispered, "Didn't I promise you forever?" Their love story wasn't perfect. But it was profound. Built on sacrifice, resurrected by faith, and sealed by acts of quiet bravery. They knew that one day, like everyone, their journey would end. But not today. Today, there was still love to give, lives to touch, and light to share. On the 5th anniversary of his awakening, they hosted a candlelight vigil at the hospital where it all began. Hundreds gathered. Nurses, patients, donors, strangers. Emma stood at the podium, hand in hand with Charles, and said, "We think miracles are sudden and loud. But sometimes, they whisper. Sometimes, they take time. I didn't know what I was doing when I sat beside Charles in silence. I just knew love needed to go somewhere. And it found him. It found me. And maybe tonight, it'll find you too." Tears flowed freely that night. People held candles. Some held hands with strangers. Others simply bowed their heads, thinking of someone they missed, someone they forgave, someone they loved in silence. That night, Emma and Charles didn't go home to a mansion. They went back to room 402, now renovated and reserved for end-of-life patients. They sat there for hours, just holding hands in the silence, remembering how far they'd come, and thanking the darkness for eventually leading them to the light. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that sometimes the smallest acts can create the greatest miracles, please like this video, subscribe to Stories Collection, and share it with someone who needs hope. Speech balloon. Please comment below, what act of quiet kindness changed your life? We'd love to read your story before this video ends. Let me know if you'd like this story formatted for narration, broken into voice-friendly scenes, or even paired with image prompts for video production.